Welcome to another Founder Institute global event. While we're waiting on y'all to come in, we're waiting to get our signal up, and we're ready. Happy to have y'all here. I'm based in Austin, Texas. My name is Martin Martinez, Executive Director for the Texas chapters of Founder Institute, but also our entrepreneur in residence for Founder Institute headquarters. I'll tell you a little bit about Founder Institute before we jump into our programming today. But while I do that, please, we got a lot of people in the audience already. It's not uncommon for us to have, well over 100 for an event like this. So tell us where you're coming from. We're a global organization. Started at a classroom in Stanford back in 2009. Fast forward nearly 13 years to the present. We cover about 200 cities in 100 countries around the world. Our program breaks down like this. Over the course of about 14 weeks, we look for entrepreneurs, aspiring founders that are trying to turn ideas into companies, and our program can help them. It's a very difficult program. Most people don't complete it, but that's by design, because not all ideas really do have the strength to become companies, and the work that it takes can be a little shocking for people that are just kind of jumping into the entrepreneurial world. Not to discourage you so much. If you're here for the Employee for Entrepreneur event, which this is, and you're in the right place, you're going to meet some amazing entrepreneurs from all around the world that have gotten through this core program and are now building enduring things. But also, just like you, we're struggling with, that when. When is it time to quit my day job? When is it time to kind of leave the comforts and luxuries of just having a 9 to 5 and building something that actually is going to give you more purpose and meaning to not just yourself, but the people whose problem you are trying to solve. So Founder Institute right now, many of us are still strictly virtual in terms of our programming. So if you aren't in specifically one of the cities that our chapter operates near you, you can still attend a lot of our virtual first programs. Some of us, like us in Texas, are going to be moving back to in-person programs. So definitely check if you are interested in applying. We'll be dropping links into the chat. Head on over to fi.co /join. Get an application in today. We have some winter programs about to start that are finishing up applications, and then we're going to be ramping up into the spring 2023 with applications open all around the world. So we're always helping in new cities. We always have new chapters getting ready to open applications. So head on over to our website and learn about maybe some chapters in your region. So let's get started. Looking at the chat, again, we got some people out of Austin. What's going on, Ola? We got out of Pakistan. Love seeing that. Nigeria, South Africa, Cyprus, Israel, Brazil. I love that. Come on, keep telling me where y'all are coming from, too. You're going to get a chance to interact with a lot of people in the audience at the networking lounge immediately following our discussion, as well as our founders. So let's bring our founders up to the stage. We've got 4 awesome ones for today. Then we're going to learn a little bit more about their stories and all the great things that they're working on. More specifically, too, what drove them to finally transition from an employee to an entrepreneur. So let's get y'all up. Let's get Lulu, Naresh, Brandon, Anna. Once y'all get kind of settled, we'll get everybody here, and let's have some fun. In the U.S., we got a big long holiday coming up, so and it's already starting to get a little cold, but otherwise, it's been a good week so far. How we doing, founders? What's going on?
How's it going, Martine? Doing great
Oh,
over here.
we're doing great, my man. It's good to see you too. For all you all you out there in FI land in the audience, Brandon graduated from one of our Texas programs just
Yep.
recently, so it's good to see him and have him on the main stage as well. So let's go in. All right, we got people out. Just going back to the things while y'all get y'all's audio and video going up. We got India, Denver, Palestine, Sweden, Chile, Canada, Bulgaria. I love this global community of ours. Every continent I'm seeing, minus Antarctica. We need to get some penguins showing up. It's that time of
Hello
year,
everyone.
isn't it? So let's begin. Founders, I'm going to start with you, Brandon, since you're down here at the bottom. I'm going to work my
Yep.
way counterclockwise. Brandon, if you'd be so kind, tell our great crowd here today for Employee and Entrepreneur, almost about 100 at this point, kind of who you are, where we can find you right now, maybe what your past life was before you
Mhm.
started this company, which I can't wait for you to share.
Yep. All right. So everybody, I just added my information to the side, my LinkedIn information. You can find me. I'm Brandon Gant, founder and CEO of Sapey. We're a food marketplace connecting hungry people to food startups, so local food startups in their area. I am here by way of spending the last 12 years in the field of education. So I've been a teacher, coach, administrator at the district level, at the main office level, and decided to take the jump into entrepreneur. I'm one of those that went head first. That's how I learned how to swim. My dad just threw me out in the pool and said, "Make it to the wall." So that's exactly what I did. I look forward to telling you guys a little more about that as we continue to go on. But glad to be here.
Fantastic. It's good to see you again, Brandon. Thank you for being with us today.
Yep.
Again, I mentioned I'm going to go counterclockwise. So just on my view, I'm going to start with go to next to you, Naresh.
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you so much and welcome everyone. My name is Naresh. I'm the founder of Home Cuisines. It's an online marketplace for the traditional and authentic homemade food. When it comes to my background, I did a bachelor's degree in information technology. I worked in Fortune 500 companies like Microsoft and Amazon before coming to Canada. I'm originally from India. I moved to Canada in the year 2017 to pursue my Master of Business Administration. I'm more interested towards the business rather than being an employee. So I thought of I was thinking of multiple ideas. Like I was brainstorming what is the best way to get some kind of a business which will flourish. One thing which came into my mind is when I came to Canada. Canada is a diverse country. It is full of almost 22% of the Canadians are immigrants. They are from from Asia, like South Asia, like South America, Europe, and all these countries. The biggest problem which I found out was because it's a diverse country, people were unable to find out they have all the dishes from all over the world, but some kind of the authenticity and traditional what we used to get back in India or maybe other countries, the authenticity is missing. So that's where realize that I need to work on a problem which is going to solve a lot of immigrants, where it is going to help them to satisfy their cravings. The food is something which always love to share and doing the stuff. Then I decided I should start working on it. So then I completed MBA and then started working on the startup. This is my first startup. And I fortunate to know about Founder Institute. It helped me a lot in order to understand how to work on the problem and how we can do the market validation. That's where I started. And then so the journey has started last year, so it's going pretty good so far. Back to you, Martin.
Oh, thank you, Naresh, and I'm glad to hear that too. Coming out of big tech, I'm going to come back to you on that in a second. Lulu, how are you? You're taking up most of the real estate on this screen.
It's a little strange.
Love it. I love it. I don't know. Maybe our producer backstage can toggle a little bit, but
A little strange.
I'm enjoying it.
Hi, fellow founders and alumni, and hi, everybody. Pleasure to be here. I forgot the question, Martine.
From the top. So tell us a little about who you are, where you're from. You already got through that first part, but also kind of what was your life in the before times before you decided to start your company, and maybe a little bit about what it does.
Okay, bear with me if my lighting. This is an interesting internet connection I have. So, yeah, so I'm actually on my 7th go at a company. I've bootstrapped my other ones, and I probably had a very early indicator around age 7 and 8 when my brother and I started our first 2 businesses, living across from a dorm, and started making money by starting a recycling business and also selling bubble gum by the piece, because we lived in Oregon and people couldn't have sugar. So we were like, the Hubba Bubba dealers at school, basically. Yeah. So it went on from there. And I am the person I found out in corporate America who says what everyone is thinking in a meeting, but apparently you're not supposed to say out loud. And I didn't really understand those rules. I'm incredibly literal and incredibly direct. And I didn't understand why we couldn't just flush out the big giant elephant in the room that no one was talking about. So I've always just kind of created my own businesses from products and service. And now this is my first time in a tech or ed tech type of field. So it's really fun, and I like it. And obviously coming from corporate in those areas, culture is very important to me and how we create it as a team. So that's that.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about the corporate stuff. I know you had a lot extensive on like the services kind of entrepreneurial world, but now you're in a different kind of bucket. There was a transition from that to corporate, now back. So what
Yeah.
were you doing in corporate before you came
So
back
my
over to the dark side?
yes, my most recent corporate position was in sales, and it was in education sales, but very like a high ticket price. Oh, my music just came on. Pardon me. And so I one day packed up my office and left after my director decided, after we had done a 5-week sprint of really intense work days and work hours, and then we take a week off as a team, to be inappropriate and speak to me in a way that was highly unprofessional. And I decided I get what I give myself, and I decided to give myself something better. And I had zero backup plan. And I'm very similar to Brandon. I jump out of the plane, and I figure out how to make a parachute on the way down. And this is not my first time doing it. My last company I ran for 11 years, and I was constantly parachute building. And it's a lifestyle, so to say, but it's definitely worth it because I have a lot of control. I have a lot of agency in my life, and I am able to do that and shift how I work. So.
Awesome. I'm glad you're here with us today, Lulu. Can't wait to learn a little bit more. And I think you got some great tidbits of advice here that the audience is going to love. But last but not least, rounding back around in the counterclockwise circle, we have Anna. Anna, how we doing?
Hi, Martin. Hi, everybody. Sorry for my voice. I hope I can arrive to the end of the speech today. I think I'm the oldest one here, so it's a long story, and I try to make it short. So I'm an organizational psychologist originally, and I've been working for 20 years in corporate business as human resources executive. So I've been working in L'Oréal, first in Italy, then at global level in Paris. Then I moved to pharmaceutical industry, where I worked as country HR director, then regional HR director, and then in position to become a vice president. I just understood that that was absolutely not the life I was interested in. And I felt that there was not that sense of life after 20 years in that corporate business. I was talking to many people as HR and leader in the business, and most of the people were unhappy in the work environment, in that kind of corporate stuff. And I thought at one point in time that I had to do something for making the life different, and therefore I started my business. My business is Liane Care. It's in Italian, Lion Care in English. It's a flexible benefit platform for working caregivers, right? So we do provide services through the platform for basically everybody, because as human beings, we all care about somebody else, right? Either kids, either elder, either animals. Caring is one of the most typical activities of human being. So I'm trying to advocate companies for this, and to talk with a lot of people, trying to make corporate business understanding that life is happening, and that they cannot keep that aside, and that they need to manage this through the platform. So this is a little bit my background and where I come from. I was the first woman graduated in Italy in 2018 on the regular program. And at that time, so in 2018, and now I'm in the lab, so in the acceleration program for raising more funds.
Awesome. Again, thank
Back
you,
to you, Martin.
all. Thank you all for joining me and 130 of your closest new friends here for the Employee and Entrepreneur event. So let's dive in, because certainly we're going to have some quick conversations here on the main stage, but certainly want y'all to sit down at y'all's tables and meet some of these awesome people in the audience. Which again, just looking at it, again, every single continent represented at this point: North America, South Africa, Europe, Asia. It's beautiful, so beautiful. And I'm sure many of them are in a similar position as y'all found yourself in many moons ago, or even just recently. So let's actually start with you, Naresh, because as you mentioned your past background. Again, you had worked in big tech, and just to start there, we're all reading what's going on in the news. There's a whole ton of people, that have built their careers in big tech, working for those big names that we all know and love or hate, depending on your emotions towards those. But essentially, again, those are cushy jobs. All of y'all have had those opportunities. Great benefits, awesome perks, great salaries, consistent. You can build. It makes sense why a lot of people would just stay there. I mean, I would, but that's not enough for a lot of people, or for a lot of entrepreneurs, most entrepreneurs, right? Maybe for the general populace, but for an entrepreneur, that just ain't gonna cut it. So, what was one of those first indicators, in those past lives of yours, where you started to realize, yeah, this is great, but I really would rather be doing something else?
Yeah. So it's a kind of like, I mean, a long story, but I will put it in a very short form. So I was like, before, when I was doing my bachelor's degree, I was very much passionate about tech industry and everything. So then I started getting the job and doing the stuff. For the first 3 years, it was wonderful because I have been learning a lot of stuff and doing with some enterprise level applications. And we used to deal with basically my role was into a backend, the database systems and etc. We literally used to see the billions and billions of dollars which the Microsoft sales system used to have, and we used to do a lot of the backend logics and stuff. The first 3 years was wonderful, but after fourth year onwards, I started seeing that yes, I've been doing the same thing again and again. So there is some kind of change in terms of the logic or something, but I didn't feel like there is a kind of something which I am creating something for myself in a long run. Also something where I have a funda in myself that as we came onto the earth, by the time we leave, we need to put our footprint somewhere in the world. That is my one single funda which I have. Then I thought okay, so I'm working from the past 3 years. Maybe in the next 3 years, maybe I might go to a different level positions. But in terms of as a personal satisfaction, it is not the way which I wanted to have it. Then I realized that okay, I need to get out of this rat race. And so I don't have any kind of a business background previously. I was into completely tech. Then I realized that it is better to have a technical background with a business degree that will elevate me to understand the market and understand the business, what are the things which the people are looking for, and how it can mold my business ventures. That's where I decided to do my MBA. But I thought I do not want to do it in India because I wanted to get a global exposure. I wanted to go and meet people from the different countries and a different environment, etc. Then that's where I came to Canada to pursue my Master of Business Administration. I mean, if you consider about most of the immigrants, the people who come from the other countries, the motivation might be different way of coming and settling in here. But my motivation when I thought of coming to Canada is, once I do the MBA, I wanted to start the business. There is no other way that when I was doing the work in the tech industry, I was giving some kind of excuses for myself. Okay, I don't have a business background. Maybe I don't have a capital. And those are the excuses which I used to give. I mean, sometimes I feel bad about myself. But I thought as soon as I complete my MBA, I need to start something. So in 2019, I completed my MBA, and then because of immigration rules and etc., I started working for a Canada-based company as a business technology manager for almost 3 years. And then I exited that one. During the process, I started doing some kind of a background. What are the what is the market validation, whether the people really need the idea which I'm looking for. So that's where came into the picture of getting into the entrepreneur ecosystem.
Got it. That's awesome. So it was gradual for you, and like a slow burn. And I think many of you in the audience are probably in that same bucket. It's there, it's lingering, but there's no aha, the world's changed, I'm changed, we're building this thing. Brandon and Lulu, y'all are very much on the opposite side of that spectrum, where you just packed it up and said, we're jumping, right? So before I get to both of you, I want to touch base with you, Anna. Was yours more was similar to kind of Naresh's journey, in terms of it was just like a gradual kind of thing, to where it's just, we're building the skills and now we're in a position to finally do it and maybe have a cushion? Or is it going to be more, is it more like Brandon or Lulu's, where it's, oh, training wheels are off, we're diving in, I'm going to learn to swim in lava, and and just start? Anna, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry,
Oh, you're good.
sorry, guys.
You're good.
Yes. So for me, the insight happened. So for me, it was very clear. Was a moment very clear. As a human resources, my practice was always the open door, right? So my door was always open for employees, and I started to close the door, right? So I was just, I couldn't stand anymore just having people around. It's true that in the final time of my life, I did a lot of M&A, so not the nice part of HR. So probably this is part of the reason why. So, but I really have the image, me closing the door and didn't want to do that anymore. But on the other side, it took me time to prepare. Okay, because you don't leave a job, of 300,000 euros, in a nutshell, with a family and people around you where they want to do something. So you need to plan. So you need to have a little bit of patience. So at the beginning, since my background was not business, I say, okay, even if I've been in a corporate environment for many years, right? So I said, okay, I need to be prepared. So I did an MBA, a global one, because that's what my interest. So I did that MBA while I was and the corporate business was very tough because my children at that time, they were 2 years old and 4 years old. And I did my job plus an MBA global, traveling, I don't know, but around 70% of my time around the world. So it was very tough. But I say, okay, I'm doing it for a good reason. So I did that. And then I plan and prepare. And at one point in time, I was ready to leave the company. But the things that for me has been, and it's always still very important, is that for me, it's absolutely important to keep learning, right? So even if I did an MBA, then I graduated in the Founder Institute, then I'm in the lab, then I did other courses. So I keep on learning a lot. Sometimes people say, but you're not tired, you're always trying to do something more and learn more. But for me, it's very important, especially when you are an entrepreneur, also having different experience and also getting access to different network. That I think is also absolutely important. So I can have, the network of my MBA, I can have that network of the Founder Institute. I'm an advocate of women empowerment. So I've been president of Association for Women Empowerment, Women Leadership in Business. So that is absolutely key for me. Also for some time, not be so lonely. Sometimes I think one of the difference, even if now we are 15 in my company, so not that many, but we are still a team. In corporate business, you don't feel that loneliness that you feel as a founder, and sometimes you feel very lonely. You don't know if you're doing or if you're going in the right direction, So keep me updated with courses and learning. It's very important.
Awesome. Thank you, Anna. You hit on so many notes. I want to try and touch on all of them at some point in this conversation, but I only have so much time. Lulu, as we just heard from Naresh and Anna about how they're getting this gradual build into finally getting into full-blown founder mode and acquiring skills along the way. You had a ton of it already, just being an entrepreneur since you could walk, right? But those are different kinds. And we share that similar thing. I had a lot of services business when I was young, didn't really jump into tech until much later in my career. But in between, had some corporate work, right? So for you, not necessarily talking about the tipping point, because we know what that was. It was almost instantaneous. What were some learnings, I guess, from being more of a kind of a traditional entrepreneur, for lack of a better term, to now kind of a tech entrepreneur that definitely added to the learning curve? Like, what'd you have to learn on top of it?
That added to the learning curve, as you're asking?
Yes, exactly.
So definitely the amount of platforms that I'm learning. And I do deal with dyslexia and ADHD. I mean, that's what we're all about, is making a difference and impact in that world. So for me, it takes 3 to 5 times longer to learn, especially when there's reading involved. So that's been a huge thing on how do I hack my learning. Like Founder Institute's a great example. I'm on my 3rd accelerator this year. Platforms from Figma to Airtable to Softer to everything we need to build in our tech stack to not only communicate and work and do operations as a team, but also to get the product out there. So on my end, that's been a big thing. And then also understanding what is a good idea how to validate that idea. And now we're at the product market fit stage. And so understanding the stages or the order of operations of a tech company versus a product or service company. Very, very different experience for sure.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you on there more. And it seems like there's some people in the audience resonating with that as well. Brandon.
One more thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Before we go to Brandon.
The biggest learning curve, I would say, is work-life integration, right? I don't believe in work-life balance. It's a tipping point to get balance. And as soon as you have it, it's gone. You ever tried to walk on a ball? I have. You have it for a minute. So the work-life integration has been one of the biggest learning curves on how to stop myself and take breaks. So.
I'm glad you mentioned that too, because that's going to go right to Brandon now. No pressure, Brandon. But essentially, again, kind of given what everyone else has shared, I know your story a little bit better than everyone else because you went through one of our programs at Texas. But again, the balance, you came from, again, like a traditional kind of industry, education, made a big switch, but you also had to communicate that to your family. So that's a big thing that happens when you're starting an entrepreneur. To Anna's point, it feels very lonely, and especially when you have people around you that don't understand it. How did you communicate that with your loved ones, with your partner, with your family about this is what we're doing?
Yeah, so that was a tough one, especially when, my wife is a teacher and I have a job that's making six figures in education. So it's like, you know what, I'm about to get rid of that steady income to do something not on the whim, but we're gonna really take a dive here. We're going to invest in ourselves. And the conversation between my wife and luckily, and I have to say this, guys, everybody who's on here, I think the most important thing you can have around you is at least one person that believes in you that's not you. Even if it's your mom, it could be your sister, it could be your cousin. You have to have somebody like, I think my wife served as that person that was like, go ahead and push me out of the airplane. We talk about jumping from an airplane without a parachute, trying to build it. My wife was flying the airplane and was like, we got this, right? And so in my situation, it was just like literally having that conversation with her to say, this is something I want to do. And she saw the time that I was working. She saw the hours that I was putting in, right? I'm working, 8 to 5, doing my regular job. And then I'm turning around working 5 to 3 in the morning, working on my startup. And so really having that conversation. And she's like, look, man, you gotta be able to do this full time. And for me, I have their faith. Like I have 4 daughters, right? I have my wife, 4 daughters. We sold our house and we really went all in. Like, and I think some people would say it's a gamble, but I don't see it as a gamble. And, I've started kind of service related startups in the past and, had success in that. So I use those past success to kind of excel my own personal motivation. And then had her support, full support. So we were able to make it happen and really jump into it. And I think for an entrepreneur, like, it was what was eating me up every day. Like I would literally be at work thinking about, Sapy. And then when I got home, it was all Sapy. And, it was actually, we talk work-life balance, like there was no work-life balance, right? And I was putting in 23 hours a day, 22 hours a day of really thinking about Sapy, putting my job on autopilot. Right. And trying to figure out like which ways can I be most efficient in the work that I'm doing with Sapy. And then it got to a boiling point where it's like, you know what, this is a good stopping point for me. This is a good time for me. And my wife was behind me. And for that reason, we were able to, I say we, right. We were able to start the business the way we had to do it. And even now, like if you talk to my wife about Sapy, she's like, yeah, it's our business. And she's absolutely right because, she's been behind me every step of the way.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's a few of you in the audience already discovered the emoji feature down there. So if you go down to the bottom, you see that little happy face, click it, you got a variety of. So when you hear something you like, give it. There you go. That's a good crowd. I like it. I'm already starting to get some people from the audience asking questions. If you do, please drop them in the chat. Our production team will serve some to me. I'll pick out some of the best ones while we have time and share them with all of you. So let's actually dive into this. I think there may be at least one of you that probably had to deal with this. Is maybe you started tinkering. Brandon, not necessarily again. You and Lulu kind of just jumped out, but maybe Anna or Naresh, since y'all were a gradual build, Did you? And I hear this a lot as well with entrepreneurs that are at that employee to entrepreneur stage. They're worried that that work during the day will not only conflict with their evening work building the company. Brandon, you did mention it, so maybe you can answer this too. Ownership, right? Especially if you're going into big tech, like when you're working, like Naresh, when you're joining those teams. I know I've had to deal with it too. You got to disclose stuff you're working on. So if you're working on something that inevitably you're going to take, how do you deal with that ownership? And again, anybody that might have this experience, please chime in. Just based on what I've heard, it seems like I may start with you, but any of y'all, was there anything, best practices, maybe entrepreneurs in the room might be able to apply as they're starting to tinker on things to ensure that they're not rubbing up against any legal conflicts with their employer?
Yeah, sure. I can go first. So, with regards to the conflict of interest, like when I was working, I started working parallelly with my previous job and as well as my startup at the same time. So, I did the entire FI program during my stay, like while I was working in the company. There is no conflict of interest until unless if we are working in the same industry and the same sector where I was doing the business. So mine was completely into a automotive tech, which is completely different from the food industry. So there was no conflict of interest, and actually it was great that I spoke with my VP of IT that I have been working on this one. He encouraged me to okay, you can do your own thing, but make sure that the other things are not piling up. In terms of daily operations and the business, what we are actually doing it. So that was one thing. But there was a clause which is there in our employment agreement and everything where we should not do anything conflicting the same industry with the same thing which we have been doing it. So that was a case for me actually.
I'm seeing a bunch of nods. Anybody else have the same issue with their employers? Lulu, I see you nodding. Do you have anything to share there?
I think Naresh summed it up beautifully. Check your contract, check your employment contract, check for conflict of interest. You're in a different sector, in a different industry completely. So that really helps. And make sure that your IP is your IP for your company and you're not taking anything from a prior company.
And that was a lot. I would, coming from education to now food and tech, right? And so I was in two different sector. So that wasn't really the biggest problem. What I did was when I was in education, I was around a lot of people. So it allowed me to ask a lot of questions about the business that I was actually doing. So I was able to I used that time to research. And that was the biggest part. I know in the chat, we're talking about validating the problem, right? So it was a lot of times me being able to be around, those educators in that community, people who, are eating quick lunches, people who are eating out, those type of people, those are my customers, right? And so being able to tap into them and ask them questions around, what I'm trying to do. And anytime I ran across a problem, it was like, hey, what did you eat last night? How'd you determine, right? I was able to actually pick brains. And then I'd go to my office to kind of keep my I literally had a small little sketch or notepad where I was keeping, all feedback that I can get. So I was really trying to be efficient in my job as an educator, which would allow me to, kind of venture out and ask questions. And really it was all about research and other times, just watching videos and things like that, or reading books to try to feed my brain. And who's going to tell an educator they can't read on the job, right? So I took full advantage of my environment to be able to kind of double dip.
Nice. All right. Anna, is there anything that we may have missed on that? And working with the employer, dealing with just the IP protections, conflicts, anything else that we may have not touched on that you saw?
Okay, sorry, because I'm clicking too many times, so I'm off with mute. No, I think regulation. I think I know very well the regulation in Europe. Regulation changing from country to country. So I think that one of the points that it's very important. So I totally agree with all the other things. So do the right things, right? Do they properly, read your contract, do these ethically. But what I would like to add is that it's absolutely important to do in the right way, because when you are an entrepreneur, it's just your face, right? And credibility is everything. Credibility is everything for employees. Credibility is everything for raising funds. So also the fact that you're exiting from your corporate environment in the right way is something that is important, because business is small and the world is very small, so people know things very quickly. So I think one of the things that is very important is working on this credibility starting from the beginning, that you are a trustful entrepreneur.
Awesome and good stuff. So I'm going to go back to you, because Brandon mentioned, he was validating, while he was working too. And a lot of the questions, I'm trying to distill a couple, are about understanding that customer in the beginning, trying to get close as possible to that product market fit that Lulu was talking about, which takes time, y'all. It's not going to happen overnight for those of you in the audience, but this is why you talk to people like Brandon has done. So how did you do that? How did you kind of acquire that early interest, to find the customer, and then really settle on, this is who I'm going to be selling to, at least in the short term?
So, okay, I made so many errors. In our case, was very long journey, right? As I told you, I did a Founder Institute in 2018, the first program. And actually, at the origin, the project was helping people working, but on transportation. So we were making transportation for fragile people. But that was the era just before COVID, right? Where transportation was different. COVID happened, and basically we didn't have a business anymore. So we were obliged to pivot. We totally changed the business model, and I'm very happy that we did that, because the idea we have put in the market last year is much more strong. We have clients, we fundraised. So definitely at the end, if something, not all the wrong things, the bad things are for the bad. Sometimes they are for the good. But it took me a long time to find the right solution, and also the solution where my distinctive skills could have had a role. Sometimes this is something that I underestimated, right? I wanted to solve an issue, and I felt that was enough to find a solution. And I underestimated how much important the key competence I had, because I had some competencies, right? And all of us have some competencies, were important to develop my business. And when I did the pivot, and I really put at a full service all my competence, because then I really leverage of my HR experience, talking with my previous colleagues, put all my network on that, then things, very quickly, happen immediately. So this is something that, for example, was one of the errors I did at the beginning, and took me time to do the right market fit, product market fit. So for us, it was long, but when it turned, we launched last year, and in 1 year was super quick.
Wow, that's awesome progress. Wow. Lulu, or any thoughts there? And you were talking about product market fit. You've built a lot, and you've gone through a lot of validation stuff with the accelerators, including us, over the past year. Any tips at that very beginning?
Well, for us, we also pivoted. We've pivoted a lot, and that took me being honest about my why I'm doing this, and that's really important. If you're setting out onto this journey, is really get clear on your why. And if your why is simply to make money, choose a different why, because the amount of commitment and pain and mountains and cliffs we climb only to fall off and pick ourselves back up, you've got to be committed and love what you're doing. You really do. But on my end, I forgot the question.
The early validation stuff, the early customer.
Early validation. So
how do you find them?
Yeah, so we spent time interviewing people until we got to the point that all of our interviews were yielding very similar information, and it's called diminishing returns. So that's when it's time for us to start building. And that's where we're at right now. So we have validated our idea, and we have a waiting list, but we haven't done product market fit, because we have to build and then test it and make sure it's going to work, right? Because we can build it and it could not work. So it's a lot of hypothesis. And the way we did that is we've gone from many different iterations to finally, one, figuring out how to do customer interviews, or how to interview people that would be using what you're building. And we use the book, The Mom Test, hands down the best book. I had to throw out our first 50 interviews because they were totally biased. And so it's a way to interview people and remove bias, not to show them feature sets, just to really get into their world and learn about them and understand their pain. And so from that, we have some mock-ups and we're going to start building, and then we're going to test our product. And that's where we start to understand if we're going to have some product market fit. And then from there, we'll move on to sales. So that's where the stage we're at now. Did I answer your question, Martine?
Oh, you nailed it, Lulu. Thank you. And you hit it right on the head. I have a whole nother event where we talk about how to do that, but you may want to share just in the chat. I know I'm going to get a question or two about which book that was. So if you can find it, drop
Sure.
it.
And just a heads up, guys, I had to turn my chat off. So I apologize if I'm not responding. I just get distracted so fast. And I want to be really present here so I don't forget too many of Martine's questions.
Well, we appreciate you for that, Lulu. Thank you. Brandon, you talked about the validation, you talked about pivoting too. You're starting to see patterns here.
Absolutely.
For all you in the audience about pivoting. You're not on the spot with it right off the bat. There's a lot of learning. So Brandon, tell us a little bit about those learnings yourself.
Yeah, and I'll say, so FI plug, like I learned to embrace the pivot, right? You got to pivot with the pivot, I think. And, coming in June to where we were when we left, we were on iteration number like 6. Like in terms of my hot seat pitch, it completely shifted from that first month to the last. But, trying to find, I'm a non-technical person, so I see a lot of the chats about the non-technical, getting an app developer. I can't remember her. I think her name was like Yara or something that we had. Martine, who spoke about the importance of, or the lack. It's not that important to have, a technical background. What I had to do really was I wanted to validate the process, the thinking, the overall concept. And so I tried to do whatever I could that was not tech related. So a big part of what we do is we connect food businesses with people in the area, right? And so a lot of that validation early on was literally having conversations with people. Have you eaten at such and such place? Have you tried such and such place? Have you tried this food? Bring in things that people regularly do. And then asking the question about, how could I put this, on a technical platform? How can I put this in an app and still accomplish some of the same things? And really what we were able to find was, how much we could do from, and we're talking pure validation, right? What can we do and how much can we do that's not online, that's offline, and still get a similar result that aligns with our why? And then from there, Lulu, you're right. The mom test, like being able to ask specific direct questions was everything. Because once you start asking those questions, you get at the meat of what is really needed. You get at the meat of that gap that you're trying to look for, and really being able to find that gap. Once you find that, that question, that actual problem, I was always told, chase the problem, find the problem. The problem is everything. Martine, you said it a bunch of times in our, in our FI sessions, right? It's all about the problem. And once you can put your finger on the problem, and that's what we did initially. Like we were trying to find the problem, and we have a marketplace, so we have two sides. And so it was really, what can we do offline to find those problems? And then say, all right, here's a solution. And then from there, we were able to, put together a team, build the app. And then now we're at that product market fit stage. And so we're trying to, make sure our product is meeting the needs and solving that problem so we can truly get product market fit. So I'm definitely right there with you. It's been a journey. And if I think to take the leap, you really have to prepare for that journey. And it's a journey that you're walking in the dark, right? With nothing in front of you. And every step is a big one. So definitely something that, you all should look forward to as you're embarking in this journey, but it's very rewarding.
Awesome. Which is going to tie into my final question, Naresh. I'm going to start with you on this one because we're running short on the live broadcast time, and I want our awesome audience to meet these awesome people that I'm getting to talk to right now. So Naresh, I like to wrap up all of my events with this question. So I'm going to start with you.
Sure.
It's very simple. It's very simple, but it ends up being a complicated answer because you want to say everything. If for all of these entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs, hopefully many soon to be founders in the audience, if there was just one piece of advice you could give them, and this is going to go for all y'all, so we'll go around, but we'll start with you, Naresh. If there was just one piece of advice you could give them before they do anything, before they go try to find a developer, before they set up the website, before they go and just start anything. So just one piece. What would that be?
Network. Having a strong network is take your business from nowhere to to the highest level. That was one of the thing I have been learning from the past 1.5 year. Network is everything. Whether in order to find out your initial customers, whether you need to find out your initial the first few employees, your core development team, or maybe your operations team, the marketing team or sales team, or getting access to the investors. Having network is the one of the core thing which you need to have. If your network is very weak, you need to start working on from that network from the day one. Because I realized that very lately, so I started my journey last year February, through Founder Institute, until late recently, starting of this year January and February, I was trying to work on the product and trying to find out the developers to build the product and etc. But later I realized that if you have a network, that network will open the doors to multiple avenues in terms of connecting to the investors, in terms of connecting with some kind of a people who they have. For example, if you know a fellow founder from another company, maybe there might be a spot, the one of the person who is they might have completed the work, and that person might be looking for a work in another startup. So there is some kind of avenues which will open through the network. And the one thing, if you ask me only one thing, the network is the key to build a successful business.
Brilliant. Lulu, same question. One piece of advice, only one thing. Is there just one thing these founders or soon to be founders could leave this room from you?
So my job, and I figured out this during this journey of this project, I call it, right, is that I get up every day and I commit to the unknown. And when I realize that is actually my job, my role, right? I know a little more than I learned yesterday. I don't know as much as I know tomorrow. However, I know what I know today. And today is today. That's it. That's how I work. And so when I realize that that is my job, and that's what I commit to, when I feel lost, when I fall down, when I'm banging my head up against a wall, or I feel like I want to quit, because the biggest thing being a founder is to keep your head in the game, keep your eye on the ball, so to speak, right? And so I remind myself, what is my job? What is my role? And it is to commit to the unknown. So if you can get yourself to be comfortable with working in the unknown, you can create something for yourself, and you learn something from every project or every company that you do. I know I have. And the second thing I'll add to that is to commit to the unknown. You need to remember everything happens for you. Nothing happens to you. And that takes you out of victim mindset, and you get to get the gifts of everything that happened, right? Like, in my FI cohort, I went through a flood, and I moved 6 times in 4 weeks through 2 mentor idea reviews, which is absolute insanity. So just remember to trust yourself and commit to the unknown, and you can do it.
Oh, this is powerful stuff, y'all. This is some good knowledge. I hope they're taking notes in the audience. Anna, same question. One piece of advice. If there was just one thing you could tell them, what would that be?
So it's difficult selecting one. I would say, I think, don't compromise, right? All the time in my experience as a founder, that I compromise for something. Like, for example, I hired a person I was not convinced because I didn't have enough money. Or I accepted an investor that was not on my page on some values, and then this has created some issue at a second time. So all the time you don't feel is the right way, don't compromise. I know that sometimes it's feel that you have to accept everything because otherwise the business is not going on. Don't do that. You can choose, and you need to feel that you can choose, right? Even if, the cash is burning and you don't have money and you don't have clients, look for the alternatives. And don't compromise, because in my experience, so I don't know if this is a general rule, but all the time I did it, then I said I did something wrong. And be resilient. That is the other things, there are up and down. It's a roller coaster. This is not questioning yourself. So just keep going.
Fantastic. Thank you, Anna. Last but certainly not least, Brandon, They may have taken all the good ones, so
they've taken some great ones, right? The one thing I'll say is this is not a place for egos. This is not the business to be a founder. You don't know everything, and as soon as you realize that you don't know everything and that people think differently than you, then it helps you get an extra step towards success. So you cannot have your ego. Leave it at the door. That's with customers. That's with, your team that you're building. That's even with, people that's in your corner. Don't have an ego. People are going to say things that are contrary. Get over it, right? Deal with it and keep it moving. So that's the one thing I'll leave with.
Check your ego at the door. I wish I had 90 minutes with y'all. 45 just ain't enough by any means. I could go on for all day. I should do a round table live at some point when we bring everybody together, which hopefully maybe next year. But either way, Brandon Gant, Anna Benini, Naresh Ravula, and Lula Waters, thank you again for joining us today. Hopefully y'all can stick around a little bit longer, a little past the top of the hour, meet some people in the audience. But again, use those emojis, y'all. Tell us if y'all enjoyed this. Let us know in the chat. Was this useful? But in any case, thank you all again for being with us at the Employee and Entrepreneur event hosted by Founder Institute. My name is Martin Martinez. What's happening next is we're all going to disappear into the ether, and you're going to see these tables pop up, these virtual tables. Maybe some of y'all were jumping at them a little earlier before we started the broadcast, but we'll be back to those. Each of our founders will have their own specific table. They'll sit down for a little while. They got businesses to run, y'all, so they can't stay with us all day, but they'll certainly make a little time to chat with you all. A little bit more about their journey. Y'all had some very great questions. I wish we could have gotten all of them, but if you have some specific for any of our founders here, please connect with them. Follow them on LinkedIn. We were sharing some stuff. Definitely follow their journey. If you're resonating with what they're working on, definitely learn more about it. See how you can help. Maybe you're a customer. Heck, maybe you're an investor in the audience that wants to learn more and support them. Please do. Again, and as a reminder, if you are in this audience waiting to quit that job, or unfortunately, maybe you just got recently let go out of, some of the big waves, the big tech world and elsewhere, Founder Institute is a great place to start that journey. Just take it from these people, not from me, in terms of what they're working on. It's all brilliant. But in any case, we'll have recording of this up, hopefully by the end of the week. And if you are interested in start taking the leap from employee to entrepreneur, head on over to fi.co/join, hit that application, and join us for some of the upcoming programs in the winter and spring of 2023. But that's it for me today. For all you in the U.S., hope you all have a very happy Thanksgiving. We're going to take a little beat off for tomorrow at FI land. For all of you out there too in the world, we hope you're safe, you're well. Please take care of yourself, take care of each other, build that future that we all want to see. And we'll see y'all next time.
Well, Martine, are you putting the link in the chat for the tables?
Oh, it'll happen right now.
Okay.